Check, check. Check, check. Okay. Sorry, trying to make sure my audio is actually live. If anybody's here, good morning. Sorry, I'm streaming from a different platform, so I just want to make sure everything was working correctly. And I'm going to copy this to our school group, which I just did. Okay, there we go. All right. Yeah, I'm live on. Normally, I do these lives on YouTube, but I also was able to add it to TikTok today. So if you're joining from TikTok, hello. Appreciate you watching. Obviously, this will be uploaded later for replay. So if you aren't able to watch it right now, I'll put it out later. But the topic I wanted to cover today was the real math of growing a land clearing business. I've been working on lots of numbers on real land clearing businesses that have grown or are growing, and really tracking the numbers and looking at what's possible for certain sizes of businesses and all of that fun stuff. So, I have a document that I've been working on, and the focus that it's going to be on is kind of the 2 to 3 machine or 2 to 3 crew size company. I've made lots of videos talking about, guys just getting started, and, how you can kind of bootstrap and DIY some ads yourself, and how you can get to, doing 10, 20, $30,000 a month pretty easily with just you and a machine. And then, of course, I've talked about guys that are, doing multiple 7 figures a year, multiple crews, office staff, all of that. But what I really want to talk about, and what I see most often guys struggle with, is those of you that have multiple machines, multiple crews, some employees. You're capable of 7 figures or multiple 7 figures, but you're not doing that. You have capacity, you have idle time, and you're not reaching that capacity for whatever reason. And I basically have 3 big reasons in here, but there's a couple different things I want to cover in terms of like capacity and revenue ceiling, CAC to lifetime value, or your cost to acquire a client versus lifetime value, and more specifically, lifetime gross profit, but broken down into, something that's more easily digestible for our industry. Looking at paid versus organic versus partnerships. So when does it make sense to use paid ads, or what size, type, and setup of company does paid ads make the most sense to get you from 500K to 7 figures, versus leveraging partnerships, leveraging contractors, leveraging developers and things like that. So kind of talking about what that number and what that position looks like in order to get you to that point. And then the 3 killers that waste time and money, and then kind of how to wrap that all up. And then, of course, this is, a Q&A, right? So I'll open up the chat or the comments here. And if anybody has any comments, questions, things they want to talk about, something that doesn't make sense or we need to spend more time on, just jump that open and leave a comment, and I will watch for it. Now, like I said earlier, this is a little bit newer in terms of me streaming on multiple platforms. So I'll try to make sure I'm watching for comments on the TikTok side as well. Okay, so like I said in the beginning, I want to talk about the 2 to 3 crew, 2 to 3 machine size company that has the capacity to be doing over 7 figures a year, over 1 million a year, but you're doing more like three, four, $500,000 a year. I want to start that off by saying, based on the math that I have done, 4 years of data, and all of the data that I could possibly find between the internet and current clients and companies that I even don't work with. If you're not doing at least $880,000 a year with 2 to 3 machines, you are not even hitting the minimum. You should be now. There's always going to be variables here, right? Like, there's some of you that are in the most mountainous region you could possibly be in. There's some of you where it snows a whole lot. There are some of you where the market is a little different, but this is overall broad across the board. 99% of the time, from what I've seen, this is extremely realistic, extremely reasonable. So, with 2 to 3 crews, realistic blended pace of an acre per crew per day, figuring for 220 working days a year, that's roughly 450 to 650 acres a year across the company. Now, I did put out a poll asking people if they knew how many acres they cleared a year on average, or at least how many acres they cleared this year. I'm wondering how many of you actually track that number, because I feel like this is an insanely valuable number that we can use to assess your company, but also predictably look at how you can scale your company. So I would love to know that if you do know it. As well as profit. That was another poll I put out, that if you actually know your gross profit versus your net profit, or if you know any number regarding your profit. I find that a lot of land clearing companies do not. And I would love to talk about that as well. So, and we are going to talk about that here in a minute. But figuring for 220 working days a year, roughly 450 to 650 acres a year across the company. Now, when I say acres, in some cases, this may be completely clearing the acre. Or in some cases, it may be, you're leaving the oaks or the nice trees and you're just taking out all the invasive stuff, or all the overgrowth, or all the stuff that's clouding up the property, right? I'm not saying this has to be all full clearing 1 acres, or it has to be all mulching. And you'll find, once you see the numbers, like, this is a blended average between full clearing, mulching, etc. So I try to keep the numbers, because so many of you offer both. There's very few of you that only offer one or the other, so the numbers kind of work out this way. So you're doing 450 to 650 a year acres. The average blended price range across the US for small business land clearing is about 2,500 an acre. There are guys charging less than that, and of course, there's guys charging 15, 20, 25,000 for full clearing, walking away with a product that people can build on, right? But I'm necking it down to the average, and I'm also keeping it conservative. So this is pretty much based on $2,500 an acre. So low, mid, and high. If you do 440 acres, that's eight to $900,000 a year. If you have 2 to 3 machines, 2 to 3 crews, you should be hitting that. That should kind of be the bottom bar. $880,000 a year. If you're not doing that, I believe you are not hitting the capacity of your machines whatsoever. I wouldn't look. This is another huge, I don't actually have this listed, but another huge mistake I see is guys really get trigger happy about getting that next machine way too early, way too early. And then they kill their overhead super fast, because they think, oh, if I'm going to be able to do more work and make more money, I need to go get that other machine, that more efficient machine, that bigger machine, that excavator with the mulching head, that dozer, that dedicated machine, whatever. And though, you're going to like it and it's going to make you more efficient and you may land a few more jobs because people see it and see what it's capable of. If you're already operating with 2 to 3 machines right now and you're not doing eight, $900,000 a year, I don't think you've hit the capacity of those machines. Now, of course, there's going to be variables here. If you ended up getting really small or cheap machines or old machines that break down a lot, there's variables there. But based on a current active land clearing company that is running day to day and has been for a while, more than a year, making money, not somebody who just started last month, that's where you should be at. Now, mid-range, if you can do 550 acres a year, that's about 1.3 million. And then if you can do 600 to 700 acres a year, that puts you right under $2 million a year. Now, y'all may have seen a video before where I put out, if you're not doing at least $2 million a year, you haven't tapped your market fully. And I have done hours and hours and hours of research and data pulling from our companies that work with us, from companies that don't work with us, and then just broad internet research. This is very reasonable, very factual, but the closest data I have is the companies that work with us, right? And we have many guys doing 1.5 to $3 million a year with 2 to 3 machines, 2 to 3 crews. It's insanely possible. One of the companies that will finish at $3 million this year is doing Facebook ads only. That's it. So that's not tapping Google ads. That's not tapping referral programs, partnerships, organic, SEO, all of that stuff. This is Facebook ads only, $3 million, 2 to 3 crews, 2 to 3 machines. It's insanely possible. So I want to start with that just to give everybody a framework of where that's at and what's possible. Now, I'm sure a lot of you are thinking like, wow, that's cool revenue. That's not money in the bank. Right. I would agree. So now jumping into profit, we need to translate that to profit. So whether you're at the low 800,000 at 400 acres, over $1 million at 500 acres, or 2 million at 600 acres, you got to be making money, right? So well-run outfits, 30 to 40% gross margins. That's what we see. Decent at this size is decent gross profit margin, 30 to 40%. Now, there's going to be plenty of you out there who may be way better. We've got guys. Great question, Austin. I'll pull that up. We've got guys that do better than 30 to 40% gross margins, but the one that comes to mind right out the gate owns all of his machines and has been in the business for 15 years. Company grows a lot slowly, which is not a bad thing. But in terms of like guys who have notes on their machines, have payroll, have, mobility costs and stuff, 30, 40% gross margins is the way to go. 10 to 20% net is pretty decent, right? So as long as your pricing is decent. So if you're doing, 1.2 million, and remember, net would be after everything, including paying yourself. So if you're at 10% at 1.2 million, that's 120,000 that you're putting in the bank, even after paying yourself. That's decent right now. Obviously, we would want to shoot for better, but it kind of depends on where your business is at. Are you in growth mode where you're trying to, get to that next level? Or are you trying to see like, okay, what can we do to make the business more efficient? And these are also things you need to think about with buying machines, because I don't know why. I don't know if it's because you go look at the machine, and if I went and looked at the machine, it'd probably get me pretty excited too. But guys will jump into a $5, $6, $7,000 a month machine payment really quick. And if you don't know your profit margin and your profit margin is 10%, you could end up eating half that or more on a machine payment. So it's really important you know these numbers before you jump into stuff like that. Austin, let me look up that real quick. So Austin, if anybody can't see it, asked what the population was of the area of the company doing 3 million a year with Facebook ads only. Mhm. Trying to get the real number here. Population density map. Well, you know what I could do? I could just look at the audience on the ad account, and I could tell you exactly. Ad set 3.9 million, Austin. 3.9 million. So Austin does bring up a good point here, which I would say Austin is probably more of a anomaly in this scenario, but not just by chance. It's because he puts in the work to make it happen. But his area is probably one of the lower populations I've seen in like our companies in terms of audience size. But he doesn't use that as an excuse. He put in the work, put in the education, put in the marketing time, put in the reputation time, and is doing, from what I know, well over seven figures in a very small populated market comparatively. So don't give yourself that excuse, guys. But also, and I'm going to talk about this more here in a minute, if you're in a better market, you need to be capitalizing on that. So, yeah, so 30-40% gross margins, 10 to 20% net. Uh, that really looks like winning to me in this size business. Now, if you're an owner operator, one machine, just you, your profit margins could potentially be way better than this. But there's lots more variables. And if you're at a smaller revenue level, one maintenance event could kill that profit. One badly bid job could kill that event. A mistake on a job could kill that event. Hiring somebody could immediately eat into that. A truck breaking down. And so a lot of people talk about, the idea of staying small and your profit's really good. There's nothing wrong with that. But if your profit is super, super high, but your revenue level overall is on this lower side, the profit can get ate into really quick. Not saying one's better than the other, just sort of a observation. So now I want to jump into cost to acquire a client versus lifetime gross profit or lifetime value of the client. This is where knowing your numbers is very important to be able to know what constraint or what problem or what stair step I can hit next to actually grow the company. But if you don't know numbers, you really it's really hard to make an accurate decision in this position. So use your data again. If you don't have data, that's where this is going to be hard. But this is something I love to do with guys. So if you want to know your data, you want to do it together, we can do it together. But from all the accounts that we've run, a good land clearing customer might cost you between $300 and $900. I try to keep this range pretty broad because we do have guys with that cost to acquire a client a little higher. One of the biggest factors there is going to be competitiveness and your sales process. Like if you're just not that great at sales and you're only closing the people who are going to close anyways, your cost to acquire clients probably going to be higher. Like we have guys closing 8 to 10% of their leads, but then we have guys closing literally 60% of their leads. Obviously, that cost to acquire a client is going to be lower if you're closing 60%. Either which way, 300 to 900 I found is a good range. But don't get too hung up on that. And I think I may have caused people to get hung up on this before. It's not the cost to acquire the client is not the most important piece, but the most important piece is the ratio of the cost to acquire versus the lifetime value, and specifically the lifetime gross profit. So 300 to 900 marketing and sales to win. And from what I have seen, most land clearing guys, their lifetime value ranges between $10 and $20,000 for that client. Now, this is looking at a pretty much a 2-year window. It's kind of how I looked at it. Um, there's going to be people with way above this. Like we've got multiple guys where the machines were there for months and months, and they're 500,000 to $1 million projects over a year or two. And then of course, everybody, I shouldn't say everybody, but a lot of guys get 1-day jobs as well. And for some of you, 1-day job may be 1,800, maybe 2,500, maybe 3,500, right? So that's where I put that number kind of on the lower end of the range. So if you're getting $10 to $20,000 lifetime value out of the client, and you're getting 30 or 40%, so let's shoot that right in the middle, $15,000 lifetime value. And where that lifetime value comes from is you've done some kind of paid marketing or some kind of boost to the ground marketing or some kind of partnership to get this job, and it costs you to get the job. Well, a lot of times jobs, it may be 3 grand the first time, but then they call you back, or they upsell, right? And so that's where we get this lifetime value. That's why it's so important to keep your contacts and keep your book of business, so that next season, next spring, next couple months, you can potentially do more work for that client, increasing the lifetime value you got from what it costs to get that one person. But so yeah, if you're at 15,000 and you're at 30% margin, well then that's $4,500 profit, right? So if it costs you on the high end $900 to get that client, and you're profiting $4,500 over that time, that's a 5-to-1 cost to acquire a client versus lifetime gross profit, which is beautiful, right? That is legitimately putting a dollar in and getting $5 out. Not just looking at revenue, but looking at profit. And this is one thing in the beginning, I looked a lot more at like CAC versus just LTV, which is good. It's a good number to make business decisions on. But where you can really see that, okay, I can put some fuel on this fire and put money in the bank, is the cost to acquire a new land clearing client versus the profit you actually make from them over time. And this is another good thing to track. I see a lot of guys when they first start getting into tracking, is they track like, okay, I landed a job, $2,500, cost me $250 to get it, awesome. But then that person calls them back in 6 months, or that person has them do more. And then they're not tracking and they're not realizing, like, oh yeah, I made a 5x return on my money from Facebook ads. But then if you are tracking really well, especially in your CRM where it's visual, you may find out that that lead that cost you $250 actually made you 10 grand, right? Or 25 grand. Um, and that kind of information is what allows you to make big decisions to really squeeze down on the marketing that's working. It's huge. So I look at one simple ratio: how much profit do I make from a customer over time versus how much it costs me to get the customer. So if that number is over 3-to-1, you can scale. If it's under 3-to-1, you need to fix it before you scale. 3-to-1 is kind of the sweet spot. Think about this to make the numbers easy and conservative. If it costs you $300 to get a client, and that client affords you $3,000 gross profit over time. Hold on, I think I did 10-to-1 before I lie to you. Yeah. Okay, so let's get even more conservative and let's get more uh, more simple numbers because I'm trying to get it down to that 3 to 1. So let's say it costs you $500 to get a client. Divided by 0.3. Okay. So if it costs you $500 to get a client and it's a $5,000 job and you have 30% gross profit margin, then that's $1,500 gross profit off of a client that costs you $500 to get. So that's 3 to 1. That's like the bare minimum. We want it to be way more than that, but you're still making money at that point, right? So, and where that plays out, where the 3 to 1 minimum standard comes from, is it costs you $500, and then you made profit 1,500. So now you've made enough money profit from one client to afford to go get 3 more. That's where the cycle can really start to compound. So if you're at least at that, then you can scale, because imagine you're getting, it costs you $500 to get a client, you get $1,500 gross profit from all of them, which we know you're going to do more jobs than just a $5,000 job, but to keep the numbers simple and conservative, right? So let's say you try to get one client a week. So $500, one client a week, that's 4 weeks. So that's $2,000 you're spending to get 4 clients at 5 grand and 1,500 profit. So that's $6,000 profit from $2,000 spent, right? So then that leaves you, say you didn't want to eat into it, say you wanted it to just stay in the bank. So then that leaves you with $4,000. So say you take that 4,000, and so next month you spend 4,000 instead of 2,000. So now you get 2 customers a week at $500, which means you're doing 8 customers with $1,500 profit. So now you made $12,000 profit. And then you spent 4,000 this month. So that leaves you with 8,000 left over. So then the next month, that third month, you spend $8,000. And remember, it was $500 to get a client. So now you got 16 clients. And those 16 clients paid you 1,500. So now you made $24,000 profit. So you go, just by knowing that number and knowing what you're capable of, you went from $4,000 up to $24,000 in 3 months with just a 3 to 1. 3 to 1 cost to acquire a client versus gross profit. So now in just 90 days, you're up to $24,000 gross profit because you knew those numbers and you were able to say, hey, I know what it costs me to get a client. I know what that client pays me on average. And then shift that into making your decision, versus what most guys do that I see a lot of times is, well, it's really one of two ways. They're either like, this doesn't work, and they just shut it down, or they say like, oh, well, it feels like Facebook is way better for me, so I'm just gonna cut off Google, and I'm gonna turn Facebook on high, add some more money to Facebook, and get more leads over there. But if you don't really know your attribution and know which leads are affording you more, like for example, we have a guy in North Carolina, and he got 10x the leads this year from Facebook than he did from Google, right? And I told you earlier that we have a company making 3 million a year from Facebook. So this isn't like a Facebook works better than Google scenario. It's literally, you have to know your numbers, you have to know your business in your specific area. But in this case, he got 10x the leads from Facebook than he did from Google, right? But he made like $150,000 from Facebook jobs this year, and he made over $500,000 from Google Ads jobs this year. So when you really go back and look at it, his cost to acquire a client and his versus his lifetime gross profit was 5x on the Google side. So once we had that data, we're able to make a decision of like, okay, let's put more money into Google because that's producing us more lifetime value. Full circle, 3 to 1. You put in $1, if you can get at least three out when you put one in, that is worth putting fuel on. Now, there's levels to it, right? So you can't just go from, okay, I'm spending $1,000 a month and I'm at a 3 to 1, so let's spend $10,000. You're gonna have a hard time doing that. You want to stair step into that. One, because you have to be able to work that many leads. Like if you're spending $1,000 getting 30 leads, and then you go spending 10,000 to get 300 leads, a lot of you are going to have a hard time handling 300 leads unless you have some really cool system in place, right? So that's one thing you just have to think about um, in terms of how fast you can actually scale, and then also can you fulfill on that? Like, are you going to get 100 really good leads and try to go out and do all these estimates and then not be able to fulfill on that work, or you're going to start booking out, so when I say pour the fuel on the fire, within what you're capable of, right? So if you're a 2 to 3 man, 2 to 3 machine crews, or 2 to 3 crews, 2 to 3 machines, from what I can tell, that ceiling is about $2 million a year. Now you could land, really big jobs that don't cost a lot to get, and your machines are there all year. That would be a variable that would kind of break that system. But about $2 million a year until you would need to start then buying new machines, hiring more people. 3 to 1. Now we see a lot of guys that are 5 to 1, 10 to 1, 15 to 1, meaning they spend $100 to get a client and they make 1,500 gross profit, right? Or they spend $500 to get a client and they're making $5,000 gross profit. But I'm trying to look at the bare minimum numbers, the most conservative numbers. And as long as you're at least 3 to 1, you can afford and you should spend more money on marketing if you are not at capacity for your machines and your crews. So that's kind of what I want to talk about next. The quote I have here is most guys think they have a marketing problem when they actually have a math problem. If your lifetime gross profit is big compared to your cost to win a job, you can afford to spend more than the other guys and still win. And this is the thing I see a lot of guys do is they don't know these numbers, so they're scared to spend more money. And when you're scared to spend more money, you don't get as many jobs as you want, and your marketing suffers. The second piece is how fast you can get your money back. What you collect from the first job or the first 30 days is more than your cost to win them. Your growth is basically client finance. You're not scaling on your own wallet. The customer funds the growth. So that's kind of 2.0 of what I was just talking about is sometimes your lifetime gross profit, because you do multiple jobs for these people or you upsell them down the road for another project, could make your numbers really, really good, which means you can be confident in your cost to acquire a client being higher. But the key to like fast scaling is if the cost to acquire versus the profit you get happens in the first 30 days. Because what's nice is if you spend $1,000 and you get 4 clients, and those 4 clients pay you in those 30 days, now you have enough money from those to get more clients the next 30 days, and they paid for themselves, right? So if you spent $500 and your profit was 1,500 and you didn't factor that in, then 500 of that went to getting the client. And so then you have $1,000 left over. So you net one, and then you have now $1,000 to go get 2 more clients who could both potentially pay you 1,500 profit, and that's how it compounds. Someone said, "Can you explain what algebra is? Because I get confused every time." No, I don't think I can explain what algebra is, but it does involve numbers and letters and variables. Okay, ads versus partnerships. Which lever and when? So what I'm pointing out here is beyond like when you're a new business and you're growing organically, where It's friends, family, local people who know who you are. You're getting a job because somebody saw you out there with your machine. That is a good way to get your feet under you, get reviews, get experience, get a reputation. But you can't scale that. You can't say, hey, I want more word of mouth referrals next month, right? Unless you have a crazy robust referral program, which I have never seen anybody in the land clearing space have in their community except through developers and contractors, which is more of a partnership. Um, so beyond that, the ways to scale, people have to know you exist, right? So the two splits here are paid ads, which I'm lumping in SEO, which is organically ranking your website on the first page of Google so that for your keywords, so that when people type into Google, they see you, right? So you have that side, and then you have partnerships or contracts for guys who can handle volume. Um, what I realized when I was making this document, and I'm not going to touch on this too much, but it in most scenarios with land clearing businesses that I saw, you can't really scale past $10 million a year without having partnerships and contracts. You just can't really scale paid ads past that in a market. The only way you could do that is if you ended up like kind of franchising out where you were covering multiple states, multiple machines, multiple crews, multiple LLCs, most likely insurance in all the different states. Like you could scale ads that way and have over 10 million a year. But like in one market, one business, I didn't see a model where you could really scale past that with just spend more money on ads. But we're not talking about that. We're talking about 2 to 3 machines, 2 to 3 crews, guys. Guys, from what I see, sitting in that 3, 4, $500,000 a year range, but have a capacity to do $1 to $2 million a year, but they're not there. So for 2 to 3 crews, doing 500,000 paid ads has been the number one driver. We see guys doing 15x return on ad spend when they spend enough, have decent content, actually answer the phone fast, and follow up aggressively. Those are the big ones. Um, a lot of guys we see spend the bare minimum on ad spend, which that kind of varies depending on your market. But basically, guys are comfortable spending 10, 20, $30 a day. That's less than 1,000 a month. In some markets, that is decent, but in a lot of markets, it's not. And when we see guys spend 150, $200 a day, it's more than a 10x. Usually it's like a 15, 20x when you go up to that range. These platforms, Facebook, Google, Meta, whatever, they like you to spend money and they reward people who spend in a certain range. And especially if that range is more than what the average person in your space is spending, they reward that. So, like, what I've seen is when we take someone from 50 to 100 a day, they don't usually get double the leads. They usually get like triple to 5x the leads. Because you just get more impressions, more people see it more often, more times. And it allows your creatives to get test your videos, your content to get tested more. Now, the caveat to that is you got to have decent content behind it. They also reward good content that people want to watch, that people want to see, that people stop on. Um, and then level 3 of that is it doesn't matter if you get 100 leads, if you don't answer the phone, you don't text them back fast, you don't follow up as often. I can't tell you how many guys I see that um, they call once, text once, maybe call twice, text twice. And they're like, these people just don't answer. They're not serious. Leads are trash. Versus the data is it takes an average of 6.78 times to get a hold of a lead. Now, the thing is, sometimes people answer the first time or they text back the first time. And then people think, oh, that's a serious person. There are other serious people out there. And I know it blows all of our minds. It happens to us every single day that someone would fill out a form and not be willing to talk to you immediately. But sometimes, and I ask people this all the time, Sometimes they fill it out while they're driving. Sometimes they fill it out when they're in the bathroom. They fill it out when they're sitting down in some waiting room at a doctor's office. And they fill it out because they see it, they're interested. But then something in life happens where they're not available to talk right now, but they filled it out. They're still interested. They just aren't available or don't want to talk right now. It's our responsibility as a business owner to stay talking to them. You need to keep following up with people until you get a yes or a no. And in terms of a lead, that yes or no is whether or not we're going to give them an estimate, right? You don't have to sell them on your service immediately. And the other big caveat here is you can't expect people to pay you $15,000 just because you exist and they clicked on an ad. You have to sell them. Ideally, once you qualify them, meaning they're in your service area, they want your service, they own the property, and they're capable of spending money. Keyword there, capable of spending money. You should be pushing to get to them in person. Now, I talk a lot about pricing transparency. We don't have to go all into it here. I think you should have pricing ranges all over all of your content, all over your website, all over your social media, and be willing to tell them that on the phone, especially if you have like a gut feeling that they're not potentially qualified. You can drop like the hey, projects like this in your area usually cost between $3 and $10,000, just depending on what's needed. Is that sound in your ballpark? And if they're like, oh my gosh, no, you may want to do some explaining. But if they're like, yeah, I mean, yeah, just depending on how much we need done, it's like, okay, I would love to come out there and walk the property with you and see what it is you need to have done over there and give you an actual quote. Um, so that's coming full circle with you need to be spending enough on ads. But to do that, you need to have good content. And I don't mean high quality professional videographers. I mean like videos of you talking, videos of your machine running, videos of well, the work you've actually done, testimonials from clients, frequently asked questions, and pricing. And they can be all be done from your phone. But none of that matters if you don't answer the phone and follow up aggressively. And I do have a cadence for this called the 72-hour booking machine. If you want it, I can send it to you. I also have phone scripts and the data on how getting the leads within 60 seconds 4x's your chances of closing the job. 78% of people will go with the first company to give them enough information to make a purchasing decision. And if you can get them an estimate within 72 hours, it 5x's your throughput on the sales. So the mistake is spending the minimum in a competitive market. Getting 15 to 20 leads and 2 to 3 jobs a month, then saying ads don't work. See this every day. Meanwhile, another guy's spending $150, $200 a day, getting 5 times the leads, and his return on ad spend is massive because he has more shots on goal and a better system. Again, see this every day. Don't spend the bare minimum, do the bare minimum effort, and say ads don't work. Like I told you time and time again about this dude doing 3 million a year with Facebook ads only. And he's not the only one. Um, but to be able to figure that out, you have to know your numbers, right? 72-hour booking machine from Cody Wayne. Yes, sir. Um, I can send you the document, but basically it's the cadence of how to get them from they clicked to booking within 72 hours. And uh, I made this off of like I basically pulled our most successful clients in the program, and I'm like, dude, this guy over here is getting just as many leads as you. Why are you making 2 million and he's making 500,000? And one of the biggest factors was speed to lead, follow up, and getting them the estimate within 72 hours. They aggressively call the leads, qualify them as fast as possible, and if they're qualified, they get them on the schedule within 48 hours. Ideals next day within 48 hours is the standard. And then actually get them that estimate. Now, best case is you give them the estimate there in person. If you have your process and your numbers dialed down, that's what you should be doing. If it's a bigger scope project that's going to need some working, get it to them the next day. And it needs to be booked. This is called a BAM fam, book a meeting from a meeting. So if you're there in person and you're not going to give them the number right now, you need to set up the next time that you're going to talk to them, whether that's in person or on the phone. It needs to be scheduled. And then once you build that quote, don't just email it to them and go about your day. You need to call and talk to them about it. It's harder for people to say no on the phone, and it's even harder in person. Um, but Cody, if you uh, message me, I can send you the 72-hour booking machine. And I have it written up for land clearing companies. So we made it based on the guys in our program that are doing the best. And I married it up with principles from overall business that I got from people way cooler and smarter than me. And I just kind of combined it for land clearing companies. I hope that answers your question. If it doesn't, comment again and I'll say more about it. So, yes, again, the mistake is spending a minimum amount in a competitive market, only getting 15 to 20 leads a month. And if you're closing a good percentage of those, that's only 2 to 3 jobs. And then saying ads don't work. Meanwhile, the guy spending $150 to $200 a day may be getting 5 to 10 leads a day. They're getting 100 leads a month. And so if they close 10%, that's 10 jobs, right? And if we're talking $2,000 to $5,000 jobs, boom, that's how you're adding $50,000 off of spending 5. So tie this to cost to acquire a client. So if your cost to acquire a client's $500 and you make $10,000 in gross profit from that relationship, that's a 20-to-1 ratio. You're not spending too much, you're spending too little. If you have a 20-to-1 ratio, you should be pouring massive fuel on that fire. That is an amazing ratio, right? Like one client can pay for you to get 15 to 20 more clients. Cody just signed on with you guys. New to this today, we'll be paying ad spend. Yes, this answered my question. Awesome, dude. I love it. I love it. So make sure that we have these conversations. Your account manager should be going over your pipeline, return on investment, cost per lead, all that stuff as the ads start to roll. But if you ever need any assistance with any of this, please feel free to hit me up. Would love to talk about it. I love to talk about this stuff, especially. So once you can consistently keep 2 to 3 crews busy, your next lever is partner work. Now, this is where I talked about at the beginning of this section, partner versus paid ads. If you're absolutely brand new, you should be doing friends, family, referrals, jobs, get a reputation, whatever. We're past that. This is, you're doing $250, $300, $400, $500,000 a year. You have multiple machines, multiple guys working for you, but you're capable of doing 7 figures, multiple 7 figures, but you're not. Paid ads get you there quick as long as you're spending enough, you have decent content, and your speed to lead and follow up is aggressive. That's what you got to have. And I just one little last note on that: have to spend enough. You can spend too little, where if you're not spending as much as the guys around you, or you're just spending as much as the guys around you, you're not going to get what you want out of it. And I've said this many times, because sometimes guys want to like be on both platforms, but they don't want to spend more than $500 a month or something. You're just throwing your money away at that point. And it's kind of weird to say that. Like, you'd think any amount of money would be good to get your name out there. But in these cases with these paid ad platforms, you really have to pay to play. And if you're not going to spend a certain threshold, it's just not going to be worth it. You're going to literally waste your money. Versus, I mean, would you rather spend $1,000 to get, a handful of jobs, or just go ahead and say, okay, let me spend $3,000 because that's going to be the average. And then, that puts you up higher where you are actually getting, multiple leads a day, closing multiple jobs a week. And then right out the gate, a great example of this, We had a client start with us about 6 months ago, still with us. He accidentally changed his ad spend to $100 a day somehow very early in the campaign. And we didn't even know that he had went in there and done that. And it was like 10 days later that someone noticed he had increased his ad spend, and the dude got like 5 leads a day for those 10 days and was just blowing up, had more estimates than he ever had in his life. People were like recognizing him at the gas station, like, dude, you're that forestry mulching guy from Facebook I keep seeing. And guess what? He kept his budget at that range, right? So it's like it makes me think like, man, if I could convince more guys to just spend more, don't pay me more, just spend more on your ad spend out the gate, you could potentially do really, really well and jumpstart to where you want to be a lot faster. But sometimes you have to break that belief. Now, I'm not saying everyone should just go and start a campaign at $100 a day. You need to have decent content, and a lot of times it's better to warm up accounts, like start at $20, $30 a day for a couple days. Make sure you see which pieces of creative Facebook is going to like, or which ads Google's going to click on more. And from there, then you can go and see, okay, I'm getting leads at a decent cost per lead. Let's incrementally raise this and track those numbers across the board. That's kind of the best way to do it. Um, you can go, 100, 500 a day right out the gate, but usually not recommended. Usually it's better to scale up percentage wise. Sorry, I kind of went off on a tangent there. Cody, doing 1K a month in ad spend, fears getting too many leads too fast, more than I can get to in a timely frame. Not sure how that works. Okay, so Cody, I don't know everything about your business just yet, but on average, $30 to $40 is a good cost per lead. Now, some guys get $100 cost per lead, but they're landing $10,000, $15,000 jobs. So having higher than a $40 cost per lead is not bad in most cases. But across the board for everyone, 30 to 40 is kind of the sweet spot we see. So I would expect you to get between 20 and 30 leads a month. That's when I say leads, that's not counting phone calls or like Facebook messages or people commenting. That's like actually someone filling out a form and answering multiple qualification questions. So essentially, you should be getting about one a day. I think you can definitely handle that. And let's say realistically, you get one a day, and 60% of them let you come do an estimate. Now, if you're a little newer, I would recommend trying to go and do as many estimates as you possibly can in the beginning. Even if you think they may not be qualified, go out there and get the practice of talking to them, get the practice of showing them the value of what you do, just building the reputation in general. Even if they're like broke and not technically qualified, they may be later and they'll remember that you cared enough to come out to their property and educate them, right? So in the beginning, I would definitely do that. Now, if you're getting 10 leads a day, you need to be more heavy on the qualification process. But yeah, one a day, you can handle that. And so if you're getting 30, say, and 60% let you come out, so 17, 18, let's say it's 16, then that's 4 a week. I think you can probably handle 4 estimates a week. And the second that you get to the point where you can't, then you need to be getting somebody to help you. Okay, so partnerships, jumping back into that. Once you can consistently keep 2 to 3 crews busy, your next lever is partner work. General contractors, developers, utilities, municipalities, land brokers, those guys feed you repeat higher ticket jobs. I see this time and time again. Probably, no, not probably. Every one of our guys doing 2 million a year or more, they have some type of work like this where they're getting fed repeat work from some type of contractor, utility company, land broker, developer, whatever. The problem, there's 2 problems. You can't put all your eggs in one basket. And I've seen this multiple times now where guys land a partnership deal like this, they shut everything off and they focus all on that. And then when that thing ends, they have millions of dollars in equipment and lots of guys on payroll and no way to turn the switch back on and get jobs. And vice versa, if you're always only relying on ads to get work, you always are relying on ads to get work, right? Which means you always have to keep feeding this machine. So once you get to that certain point, that's where having this mix of ad and partnerships or contracts can be very, very helpful. Um, Now, at the smaller size, it may not be as big of a deal. I said on Owner Ops podcast the other day that we just talked to this guy in Central Texas who's doing 1.5 million a year, 600,000 profit, zero marketing, basically doesn't exist online. It's all ranch work, and he's got developers, realtor, like land realtors, not like sell your house realtors, having him on these branches for months at a time, doing big ponds, big roads, and stuff. But for him to like say, "Hey, I want to double my business next year," he would need he would need an online presence and ads, right? So that's kind of the flip side of that. And his scenario is a lot more rare. But imagine if you're already doing 500,000 to a million a year from ads, and then you go out and set up partnerships like that with ranches, developers, municipalities, power companies, solar companies, right of way, whatever. This is the time to do that. So it's only a blessing if you're priced correctly, you know your CAC to LTGP, and you have a system to respond fast and walk jobs within 72 hours so you can actually win bids. So this is another big thing. And it comes back to the balance, right? Because if you get on a big contract and then now you start ignoring your leads, you start ignoring your marketing, you start getting slow with responses because you're favoring the contractor, then your reputation's going to fall off and your pipeline's going to fall off. And then one day, if you don't have that contract, you can't keep things busy enough. So that's where I have this play a little later in the game. Basically, your 2 to 3 guys, 2 to 3 machines, they're over here rocking and rolling, you know, working 220 days a year, and you're ready to scale to that next level. You can either pour more on ad spend or jump to this partnership role where you land a couple contracts where you can keep a couple machines busy regularly, which is like this nice bottom line revenue that's just going to kind of hit every month while you have this whole sales system of 2 to 3 machines staying busy from ads over here. And I do have a partnership play, like in a playbook, if anybody wanted to see that. But you want to position them. So if you're under a million, your number one priority is usually getting your ad machine right. 1 to 1.5 million solid crews and cash. You keep the ads and you layer on partnerships so you're not just living job to job. You have this baseline of work. And that holds true with a lot of our clients that are in the 7 figures to multiple 7 figures. They all have a very good ad machine, but they keep machines steady with contract work as well. So 3 big killers that waste time and money. Sorry guys, I'm kind of going long today. Uh, so the big 3: low ad spend in hard markets, lack of content, slow speed to lead and follow up. Those kill people's businesses every day. Spending the bare minimum, $10, $20 a day when other serious guys are spending 100 to 150 a day, you'll never get enough volume for the good ads in big months to show up. Lack of content, no before and afters, no talking videos, no job walkthroughs, no frequently asked questions, no pricing videos, pricing posts. The guys with better proof and more content win, even if they're not the better operator, right? So, sorry, content. We've got a lot of guys recently that say they don't want to be on camera. What we're noticing is the new website is your content. People more and more every day are going to social media first to vet people to see, are they doing jobs? How do the jobs look? How do they look on job sites? Can I actually learn about the person so that I can build trust in that person? You need to be posting these videos regularly. And the best way to make the ad machine work is to be posting just organically, just to Facebook, TikTok, Instagram, whatever. Just be posting, and then the ones that do better than the other ones, then we turn those into ads. And that's a quick way to shortcut the best ads. And then speed to lead follow up. If you don't call back in under 5 minutes and get eyes on the property in 72 hours or less, your close rate's going to tank. Faster contact means fewer total follow ups, a higher show rate, and more jobs from the same leads. Fewer total follow ups, higher show rate, and more jobs from the same leads. Who does not want that, right? So call back or call leads in under 5 minutes, bonus points for under 60 seconds, and get eyes on the property in 72 hours or less. Your close rate will tank if you don't, and then you need to have faster contact. Oh, sorry, Cody. So what's the average bid price for 1 acre? My surrounding areas, weekly expenses not included, ad spend. Me. My weekly expenses not including will be about 3,800 a week. Guesstimate is about 65 to 7,500 an acre. I mean, this is going to vary a lot because you're going to have some guys that will come in with really big machines and multiple machines and be able to do a lot at once, right? And then you are going to have guys come in with just mulchers, or you're going to have guys come in with, one machine and push everything over. Are you going to have to burn it? Are you going to have to haul it off? Um, are you pulling out all of the stumps so they can build on it, or are they just opening it up for pasture? There's going to be a lot of factors there to just say like, hey, here's what the average bid price is. Because I mean, there's going to be guys charging $2,000 an acre to do forestry mulching, and then there's going to be guys charging $15,000 to do full clearing. So there's going to be a lot of factors there, and like most of the area you're talking about is in burn ban, so you may not be able to burn, so you may have to haul off unless they have somewhere you can dump it. Um, but feel free to reach out to me. We can talk about that more for sure. Okay, wrapping it up here. Land the plane. If you're running 2 to 3 crews doing somewhere between 500,000 and 2 million, here's the point. Most likely your ceiling is 1 to 1.5 with the crews you have. Your math on good jobs is excellent. You can afford to spend more than most of your competitors. Whether you should pour into ads, partnership, or both depends on your current capacity and your CAC to LTGP ratio. If you want to see this with your numbers and a year or two of land clearing data behind it, book a call. I'd be happy to go over this. This is the kind of stuff I'm going to look at if we're, looking at working together, depending on if you have the numbers or not. And build a growth plan. We can map out your crew capacity, revenue ceiling. I have a little bit more of an in-depth document that talks about like what's the capacity for 1 crew, 1 machine, 2 to 3, 5 plus. What can you actually do? And then we kind of marry that up with how much land is there to actually develop in your area, etc. No pressure. Worst case, you walk away with a clear picture of what's possible in your market. Best case, we'll help you hit that next goal. So if you want to book a call, just go to riseonlineads.com, and there's multiple places to book a call there. I think you can even do like /book if you wanted to actually type it in. If you're not ready to go that far yet, check out our YouTube, TikTok. There's tons more videos of me talking. This was like a lot more numbers in-depth style video, but there's lots more videos. Learn more about us before you book a call if you want to. There's tons of testimonial videos from our clients who've been with us for years, some of them who've been with us for months. But if you'd like to talk to us, I'd love to talk to you. I do also have a free school group. It's just called Land Clearing Growth. Anything we have is Land Clearing Growth. School is Land Clearing Growth. YouTube, TikTok, Facebook, Land Clearing Growth.